She saved 11 wolves from freezing to death. The Omega had no idea one was the Alpha King. The wind screamed through the forest like a chorus of lost souls. Snow fell in thick, unyielding sheets, covering the ancient pines with white silence. Every branch bowed under the weight of ice. Every path seemed swallowed by winter. The villagers had long avoided this forest during such storms, speaking in hushed tones of wolves and shadows that moved with minds of their own. But Amara, an Omega woman known for her quiet courage and gentle heart, moved steadily through the snow. Her feet sank into the white drifts, her hands trembling from cold, but she pressed onward. She could not ignore the cries she had heard earlier in the day, small, desperate sounds of life caught in the grip of the frost. The villagers had warned her not to go. "The wolves are dangerous. They are not yours to save," one old man had said, his eyes wide with fear. But Amara could not turn away. She had always felt a pull toward creatures in pain, toward those who suffered silently. Something in her chest urged her forward, a warmth that would not be denied even in the coldest of storms. After hours of trudging through snow-laden paths, she found them. 11 wolves, their fur matted with ice and blood, huddled together in a frozen ravine. Their breaths came in ragged clouds, and their eyes, wide with fear, followed her every movement. Some were thin to the bone, shivering uncontrollably. One in particular, larger than the rest, had an intensity in its amber eyes that made her pause. It was not just fear she saw there. There was pain, pride, a strength that refused to fade even as the frost clung to its body. Something about this wolf felt different. Amara knelt in the snow, her gloved hands reaching out. "I won't hurt you," she whispered, though she knew they could not understand her words. She worked quickly, loosening branches that pinned them down, brushing away snow from their bodies. The wolves stiffened, growling low in their throats, but none attacked. She treated the smallest one first, a young pup that shivered violently. She wrapped it gently in a piece of cloth she had brought from her home. The pup's eyes met hers, a fragile spark of trust forming despite the terror around it. One by one, she worked with the others, guiding them from the ravine, murmuring soft encouragements as though the words themselves could chase away the frost. The larger wolf, the one with the piercing amber gaze, did not move forward at her invitation. It circled at the edge of the group, watching her carefully, almost as if measuring her. Amara felt an odd sensation in her chest, a mix of fear and fascination. She had never encountered an animal like this before. Its presence seemed regal, commanding even though it was trapped and weak. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. By the time Amara had led the wolves out of the ravine, night had fallen. The storm had not lessened. If anything, the wind seemed angrier now, like some unseen creature was testing her resolve. She made her way to a small clearing she knew, where an abandoned hunting cabin lay hidden under the snow. It would not be warm, but it would offer some shelter. As she approached, the amber-eyed wolf finally stepped forward. It did not run, did not attack. It simply walked, a careful, measured pace, keeping its distance yet staying close enough that she could feel its presence. There was an intelligence in its movements, a deliberation that unsettled her. Most wolves she had seen were either fearful or aggressive. This one seemed different. Inside the cabin, she managed to light a small fire. The wolves clustered around it instinctively, drawn to the heat. The pup nestled close to her feet, while the larger wolf remained near the doorway, its gaze fixed on her. She watched it in return, unsure whether to feel fear or awe. "Why are you watching me like that?" she whispered, almost to herself. Her voice felt small in the cold, vast forest. The wolf's eyes did not waver. It was as though it recognized something in her, a spark, a strength, a purpose. Amara had no words to understand what it meant, but the feeling in her chest grew heavier, almost electric. The night stretched long and cold. Amara tended to each wolf as best she could, breaking pieces of dried bread into small bits, rubbing snow from their fur. Sleep tugged at her eyelids, but she could not close them fully. Not while those eyes watched her, steady and unyielding. It was then that she heard the sound, soft at first, like a whisper of the wind but growing steadily louder. A low hum of magic, almost imperceptible, vibrating through the cabin floor and walls. The air grew thick. The wolves stiffened, ears pricked, muscles taut. The amber-eyed wolf moved closer to her side, a protective stance that was both alarming and comforting. Amara swallowed hard. What is that?" she asked, though the sound offered no answer. The cabin seemed to pulse with something ancient, something alive and aware. She felt a strange warmth brush against her mind, like a voice without words, a presence that was both foreign and familiar. And then she realized the wolf was looking at her not as an animal, but as if it contained a secret too vast to be spoken aloud. Its amber eyes glowed faintly in the firelight, and for a fleeting moment it shimmered, and she could almost see the faint shape of a man behind the wolf's form, strong, silent, commanding. But the image vanished as quickly as it came. She blinked, questioning her own eyes. The wind howled outside. Snow pelted the cabin like frozen needles. And then, from the edge of the forest, came the first warning of another presence, deliberate footsteps, not human, not entirely animal, echoing across the snow. They moved closer unseen but unmistakably watching. The wolves bristled. Even the smallest pup growled, though its sound was weak. The amber-eyed wolf stepped directly in front of Amara, its body tense, every muscle ready to strike. Its growl was low, rumbling through the cabin floor like distant thunder. Amara's heart pounded. She felt a surge of both fear and fierce determination. She could not leave these wolves to die again, not after she had risked so much to save them. Yet the presence outside, it was more than a man, more than a creature. She could feel it, a shadow of danger that was deliberate and calculating. A sudden crack echoed through the cabin, the door had splintered. The snow poured in, stinging her skin, carrying with it a chill that seemed unnatural. She stumbled backward, her breath catching in her throat. The wolves shifted, snarling, moving as one. The amber-eyed wolf leapt forward, baring its teeth in a silent command to whatever waited outside. And then the figure emerged from the snowstorm, a tall silhouette cloaked in darkness, carrying an air of authority that made Amara's chest tighten. It stopped at the doorway, hidden partially by shadows, but the power radiating from it was unmistakable. She could feel it pressing against her mind, testing, weighing, judging. The wolf in front of her let out a low, resonant growl, and for the first time, Amara felt the truth stir within her. This was no ordinary wolf. And this figure, this presence outside the door, it knew something about her, something important. Her fingers clenched into fists. She stepped forward, heart hammering. I won't let you hurt them," she said, voice trembling but firm. The amber-eyed wolf nuzzled against her side, a silent promise that it would stand with her. The figure remained silent, unblinking, yet she felt its gaze pierce into her very soul. Then, almost imperceptibly, it shifted. A faint shimmer of golden light traced the edges of the cloak, and the air grew heavier. The wolves growled, a chorus of warning that echoed through the snow-filled night. And then the figure spoke, a single word, low and commanding, that made Amara freeze in place. Omega. The cabin trembled, the fire flickered wildly, and the amber-eyed wolf snarled, teeth bared. It was a name she had never heard anyone speak aloud, and yet somehow it belonged to her. Her breath caught, her heart raced. Something in her chest tightened with fear, awe, and an unspoken longing. The wolves pressed close, the storm raged louder, and the shadow at the doorway stepped forward just enough for her to glimpse the faint outline of a crown beneath the hood of his cloak. Her mind screamed questions she could not form aloud. Who was he? Why did he call her that? And most importantly, why did her heart feel as though it already knew him? The storm outside seemed to pause for a heartbeat, holding the world in tense suspension. Inside the cabin, Amara and the amber-eyed wolf faced the figure together, two protectors standing against a presence that seemed more than human. And in that suspended moment, the night whispered a single truth. Nothing in her life, not her exile, not her solitude, not even the frozen forest, had prepared her for what was coming next. The door creaked slowly, a threat and a promise. And beyond it, the Alpha King watched, unseen yet all-knowing, as the Omega who had saved 11 wolves from death stared back at him, unaware of the power and destiny she had just stepped into. The storm outside raged as if the world itself had turned against her. Amara's heart pounded in her chest, a rhythm that echoed the low growl of the amber-eyed wolf standing at her side. She could barely breathe, yet she could not look away from the shadowed figure in the doorway. Every instinct screamed danger, yet a strange, magnetic pull rooted her to the floorboards of the cabin. The figure moved with quiet authority, stepping fully into the flickering firelight. Amara could finally see him clearly, though the snowstorm behind him blurred the edges of his form. A man, tall and imposing, with eyes that seemed to glow faintly gold in the fire's reflection. His cloak was heavy with snow, yet it fell like liquid silk over his shoulders, hinting at a presence both commanding and regal. A faint crown, almost hidden, gleamed atop his head. The amber-eyed wolf bristled, stepping protectively in front of her. It growled, a low, vibrating warning that carried the weight of centuries. The man did not flinch. He only tilted his head slightly, watching her, studying her. "Do not be afraid," he said, his voice calm, steady, yet layered with power. The word alpha seemed unnecessary, his presence carried it. "I mean you no harm, not unless you force me to." Amara's mouth opened, but only silence came. Her hands clutched the edge of the firewood, knuckles white. Every part of her screamed to run, yet she could not. There was a strange familiarity in his gaze, a sense that he had been watching, waiting for far longer than she could understand. You're a wolf," she whispered, finally finding words. He smiled faintly, not cruelly, but as one who bore a secret too heavy to share lightly. "Not entirely," he said. "I am both in ways you cannot yet understand, and you are different." Amara's mind raced. "Different how?" "You see the truth," he said simply. "Most humans cannot." He stepped closer, and even in the dim firelight she could see the faint shimmer that hinted at power beneath the surface. The amber-eyed wolf at her side stiffened, growling again, but the man raised a single hand, and the growl stopped. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the wolf settled slightly but did not lose its cautious stance. Amara's gaze flicked between the wolf and the man, confusion and wonder mixing in her chest. Why are you here? What do you want from me?" The man, the Alpha, studied her for a long moment. Then he spoke, words soft but firm. "You saved them, all of them, 11 lives. Most would have turned away, most would have left them to die, but not you. That changes everything." Amara's lips trembled. I could not leave them," she whispered. She glanced down at the wolves, all of whom were slowly regaining warmth and strength by the fire. The amber-eyed wolf met her gaze, and she could feel a silent recognition, almost a bond forming across the gap between human and wolf. The Alpha's eyes softened just slightly. "You are brave, foolishly brave perhaps, but brave nonetheless." She shook her head. "I'm not brave, I couldn't watch them die." Her voice broke and she looked away, brushing a strand of hair from her face. He said nothing. Instead, he knelt, lowering himself to her level, the firelight reflecting off his eyes. "And yet, courage is what makes you different from those who would leave them. You have a rare gift, Omega. A gift that the world does not understand, but that those who suffer can feel." The word Omega struck her like a bell. She had never been called that aloud before, at least not by anyone who mattered. Her heart skipped a beat. I don't understand." "You will," he said simply. Then he straightened, his gaze moving toward the shadows outside the cabin. "But first, you must understand the danger. There are those who would see these wolves destroyed, and you along with them." The curse on this pack is older than this forest, older than your village. Only a true alpha can lift it, and I am that alpha." Amara's eyes widened. The realization hit her slowly like the creeping thaw of ice. This was no ordinary wolf, no ordinary man. The wolf she had saved, the one who had watched her all night, he was the Alpha King, the ruler of a pack bound by magic and ancient law, and she had saved him without even knowing. You're the Alpha King," she whispered, voice trembling with awe and fear. He inclined his head, a shadow of a smile on his lips. "Yes, but I am not here to demand loyalty. I am here because your courage matters more than titles, because you saved more than wolves. You saved hope." Amara stared at him, the firelight reflecting in her wide eyes. She wanted to speak, to ask everything she had wondered since finding them in the ravine, but the Alpha's gaze held her still. There was something in it, a weight, a burden, a pain that ran deeper than snow and ice. "You bear a great weight," she said finally, her voice soft. "And yet you are still here, watching, waiting." "I have no choice," he said quietly. "The curse is tied to me. The pack will not survive without me, and I will not survive without hope." Amara's chest tightened. She could feel the truth of his words, the raw honesty beneath his regal presence. There was something in him that was lonely, wounded, and unspoken. Her heart ached for him, though she barely knew him. The amber-eyed wolf shifted at her side, nudging her gently. Amara realized then that the wolf and the man were one. They were connected in a way she could not yet understand. The wolf's gaze was still protective, still wary, but also grateful. It was a strange, unspoken acknowledgement that she had done more than anyone else could. Hours passed in tense silence. The storm outside showed no mercy, yet inside the cabin there was a fragile calm. Amara fed the wolves, warmed them with blankets, and watched as they slowly regained strength. The Alpha, in his human form now, but never losing the essence of the wolf, observed quietly, occasionally offering guidance without words. Finally, exhaustion claimed her. She sank to the floor beside the fire, her hands brushing against the amber-eyed wolf's fur. It nuzzled her gently, and for the first time she allowed herself to relax. Sleep tugged at her, but a part of her remained alert, sensing the weight of destiny in the cabin. Before she drifted into slumber, the Alpha spoke again, his voice low and almost a whisper. "You do not yet know the full danger. The one who cursed my pack will come for you, soon, and when he does, you must be ready." Amara's eyes fluttered open. "Cursed? Who would do this?" "The one who desires power over life itself," he said simply. "He watches the forest and he knows of your kindness. He will test it. He will test you." Her heart thudded painfully. The fear she had carried since the ravine returned, stronger now, mixed with something else, a strange, thrilling pull toward the Alpha himself. His presence was overwhelming yet comforting, dangerous yet magnetic. She looked at him, words failing. The fire flickered between them, casting shadows across the cabin, and she realized how much she needed him, though she barely understood why. And then, without warning, the wolves stiffened. A distant howl echoed through the forest, a sound that was more than natural, more than animal. It was a signal. The Alpha's eyes narrowed, his body tensing. He moved toward the doorway, every muscle coiled. "The enemy is near," he said, almost to himself. "And soon you will understand why your courage matters more than you know." Amara's chest tightened. Fear, wonder, and an unfamiliar longing swirled inside her. She wanted to ask questions, to demand answers, but the Alpha's gaze silenced her. She could feel the truth pressing against her mind. The wolves were safe for now, but this was only the beginning. The snowstorm outside intensified. Shadows danced across the cabin walls. The amber-eyed wolf growled, low and warning, yet it pressed against her, protective and loyal. The Alpha stepped fully into the firelight now, regal and commanding, yet carrying a vulnerability that she could not ignore. "You are not alone," he said softly, his voice carrying a promise as well as a warning. "I am here, and I will not leave you." Amara's heart thudded. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him. And yet, deep down, she knew the world outside the cabin would not wait for her to decide. The danger was real. The curse was real. And the Alpha King, the wolf who was both man and beast, held the key to everything she could not yet understand. The cabin fell silent for a long moment. Only the wind screamed outside, only the fire crackled, only the wolves shifted in uneasy rest. Then the Alpha turned toward her, eyes glowing faintly. "Sleep now," he said. "Tomorrow everything changes." Amara closed her eyes, though sleep did not come easily. She felt the weight of destiny pressing upon her, the pull of something ancient and unstoppable. And she realized with a shiver that was part fear and part excitement that her life, and the lives of the 11 wolves she had saved, would never be the same again. The storm outside howled louder. Somewhere in the distance, a shadow moved, deliberate and watching. And the Alpha King, hidden in plain sight, waited not just for the pack, but for the Omega who had unknowingly saved him. The first light of dawn painted the snow in pale gold, but it did little to warm the forest. The storm had passed, leaving behind a quiet that felt heavier than the howling winds of the night. Amara stood outside the cabin, her breath rising in fragile clouds. The wolves moved around her, their paws crunching in the snow, alert and tense. The amber-eyed wolf stayed close, its gaze never leaving her. The Alpha King appeared beside her without sound, his steps light but purposeful. In the daylight, his presence was even more commanding, yet the faint trace of vulnerability lingered in his eyes. "We must move," he said quietly. "The one who cursed my pack will not wait forever." Amara nodded, though fear curled around her chest like a thorned vine. Where will we go?" she asked. She had survived the frozen ravine, tended the wolves, and endured a storm, yet the world ahead felt even larger and more dangerous. "To the ruins of Valemire," he replied. "There the spell was forged. There we can confront him." She shivered, but not entirely from cold. Valemire had been spoken of in whispers among villagers, a fortress swallowed by snow, haunted by dark magic and shadows. Few dared approach it, and even fewer returned. Yet she found herself nodding, compelled by courage she could barely understand. She had saved lives before. Perhaps, she thought, she could survive this journey too. The Alpha led the way, the amber-eyed wolf at her side shifting seamlessly between wolf form and human form, though always maintaining the sharp, intelligent grace that reminded her of the Alpha's true nature. As they moved deeper into the forest, the wolves followed, a living shadow that shifted with the sunlight, their forms blurring between beast and man. Amara struggled to keep up, her muscles aching from the previous day's exertion. Yet each time she faltered, the Alpha's gaze found her, steady and unwavering. It was not harsh, not commanding, but somehow grounding, like a tether in a world of snow and uncertainty. Along the journey, silence often fell. It was not empty silence. It was filled with unspoken communication. The Alpha would glance at her, and she would know to step aside for a fallen branch. A wolf would nudge her hand, and she would understand a warning was near. Slowly, the world of magic, of power, of curses and kings began to feel natural, almost like breathing. One evening, as the sun sank behind the distant mountains, Amara sat beside the amber-eyed wolf, now in human form, tending to a small fire. The pack circled nearby, alert but calm. The Alpha reached for her hand, hesitated, then let it rest gently atop hers. "You are different from anyone I have ever met," he said softly. "Not just in courage, but in heart. You see life when most others turn away. You feel the world when most only survive it." Amara looked down at their joined hands, the warmth surprising her. I don't know why I feel drawn to you," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "It's frightening in a way." He smiled faintly, shadows flickering across his face in the firelight. "It is natural," he said. "You are drawn to what you cannot yet understand, and I am drawn to what I never thought I could feel again." Her breath caught. She had sensed the loneliness in him, the quiet grief that the villagers could never see. Now she understood it in a way that went deeper than fear or admiration. There was a sorrow there, a longing, and perhaps even a hope that was only just beginning to stir. The fire crackled, throwing light across their faces, and for a moment the world outside the circle of wolves and warmth seemed to vanish. Yet the danger was never far. The Alpha's gaze drifted to the trees surrounding them. "The sorcerer will come for us," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "And when he does, you must be ready. He will test your courage, your loyalty, even your heart." Amara shivered, but not from cold. I don't know if I can fight magic," she admitted. I'm not like you. You have something stronger than magic," he said, his eyes intense, glowing faintly in the twilight. "You have fearlessness, kindness, and courage. That is what breaks curses. That is what saves lives." The journey continued over snow-laden hills, and through forests so silent that even the wind seemed afraid. Days passed, each one blending into the next, marked only by the Alpha teaching her small lessons: how to move quietly, how to sense danger, how to understand the subtle language of the wolves. One evening, as the moon rose over a frozen lake, the Alpha finally revealed a fragment of the truth. He had been cursed by the sorcerer years ago, trapped in wolf form for much of the time. His pack had been scattered, forced into hiding. Only the courage of one human, one Omega who could see life beyond the ordinary, could begin to lift the spell. That human was Amara. She listened, absorbing the weight of his words, her heart tightening with the gravity of her role. "And if I fail?" she asked, voice barely audible. "You will not," he said simply, "because courage is not measured in victories but in the willingness to act when others would hide. You have already proven that." As they reached the outskirts of Valemire, a darkness settled over the land. The snow turned gray, the wind carrying whispers that seemed to speak directly into her mind. The sorcerer had been waiting. His magic pulsed through the air like a storm, unseen yet undeniable. Amara's hand trembled, but the Alpha caught it, steadying her. "You are not alone," he said. "Remember that, trust in yourself and trust in me." Inside the ruins, shadows moved like liquid, curling and twisting in impossible ways. Statues of forgotten kings loomed over crumbled walls, their faces frozen in grim expressions. The air smelled of ash and old snow, and the faint echo of whispers seemed to follow every step. The Alpha shifted between human and wolf form as needed, leading the way with precision. Amara followed, heart hammering with every step. The pack flanked them, a living army that moved silently, watching for threats. Then they reached a central chamber where the air shimmered with dark energy. At the center, seated upon a throne of black stone, was the sorcerer. His eyes gleamed with cruel delight, and the magic surrounding him crackled like lightning in the air. "So," he said, voice smooth and dangerous, "the little Omega dares to enter my domain, and the Alpha King, you finally arrive." Amara stepped forward, the fire of courage burning through her fear. "We will not let you hurt the wolves," she said firmly. Her hand instinctively went to the amber-eyed wolf beside her, and she felt his strength and resolve radiating through the bond they shared. The sorcerer smiled, a cruel twist of lips. "You are brave, girl, but bravery is not enough. Courage will not save you from the power I wield." The Alpha stepped forward, shifting fully into his human form. "It is not power alone that wins," he said, voice resonant and commanding. "It is heart. It is loyalty. It is the courage to stand for what is right." Amara felt a strange warmth at his words, a connection that filled her with determination. She did not fully understand the magic at play, but she knew she would not stand aside. She had already faced death in the frozen forest. She had already saved lives when the world had told her to turn away. The sorcerer laughed, a low, chilling sound. "Then show me, little Omega," he said. "Show me what your courage is worth." The chamber trembled as magic surged, the air thick with power. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting into shapes both familiar and terrifying. The wolves shifted around them, muscles coiled, eyes glinting with intelligence and alertness. Amara took a deep breath. She stepped closer to the alpha, feeling the warmth of his hand on hers. She realized then that courage was not the absence of fear. It was the willingness to move forward in spite of it. Together, they faced the sorcerer. Together, they would fight not only with strength but with heart. And as the dark magic swirled around them, Amara understood the truth that the Alpha had tried to teach her. Destiny was not a chain but a choice, and she would choose to protect the pack, to protect the Alpha, to face whatever came next, no matter the cost. The chamber shook violently as the sorcerer's magic tore through the ruins of Valemire. Stone cracked and dust filled the air, snow and frost swirling in unnatural currents. Amara's heart pounded in her chest. The wolves circled her protectively, their forms shifting between human and wolf, ready to defend her with every ounce of strength they had left. She felt a hand on her shoulder. The Alpha King was there, his golden eyes blazing with both power and worry. He had pushed back the sorcerer's first wave of attacks, but he looked tired. Even so, his presence gave her courage. "You must stay close," he said, voice firm. "Do not run, do not hide. Your courage, it is stronger than you know." Amara nodded, gripping his hand tightly. She could feel the pulse of his strength flowing into her, the connection between them more than just trust. It was something deeper, a bond forged through trials, danger, and survival. The sorcerer's laughter echoed, cruel and hollow. "Fools," he sneered, "you think love and courage will save you. Magic bends only to power, not to sentiment." Amara's chest tightened, but she held her ground. She had faced fear before, in the frozen ravine, in the storm, in the forest alone. Now, standing beside the Alpha King, she realized that courage was not the absence of fear. It was the will to act despite it. The Alpha stepped forward, shifting fluidly between human and wolf form as needed to block incoming blasts of dark magic. Each movement was precise, powerful, yet graceful. His cloak whipped around him like a living shadow, his crown glinting faintly under the eerie light of the chamber. Amara watched him, awed and terrified. He was magnificent, strong, unyielding, yet deeply human in his care for her and the pack. She realized, with a pang in her chest, that she was not only fighting to save the wolves, but fighting beside someone who had already captured her heart without words. The wolves lunged together at the sorcerer's side, teeth and claws striking shadows that hissed and twisted away. Their human forms flickered, revealing glimpses of men and women trapped by the curse, loyal, powerful, and terrified. Amara's breath caught in her throat. She had saved them from death, and now she had to save them from something far worse, the sorcerer's magic which threatened to consume everything. "Amara," the Alpha called, his voice steady over the roar of magic and wind. "Now, focus." She took a deep breath, remembering every lesson he had taught her during their journey, how to sense the energy of the forest, the wolves, and the world around them. She raised her hands instinctively, and she felt a warmth bloom inside her, spreading outward like sunlight. It was not just magic, it was courage, it was compassion, it was hope. She spoke aloud, a single, steady word, "Enough." The word carried through the chamber, soft but undeniable. The wind seemed to pause, the snowflakes hovered midair. The sorcerer faltered, his cruel grin twisting into shock. He had underestimated the Omega, underestimated her courage, her heart, and her connection to the Alpha and the pack. The Alpha moved beside her, raising his hands, and together they created a wave of energy that pulsed outward. It was not destruction, but restoration. The walls of Valemire shimmered, the shadows recoiling, the darkness unraveling. The wolves shifted fully into their human forms, freed from the lingering chains of the curse. Their eyes met Amara's, gratitude and awe reflected in their faces. The sorcerer screamed, his magic faltering, powerless against the bond between the Alpha King, his Omega, and the pack. He tried one last attack, a wave of darkness aimed at Amara, but the Alpha intercepted it, his body a shield of strength and loyalty. The Omega stepped forward, and together, they sent the final spell crashing into the sorcerer, breaking the magic that had held him and the wolves in bondage for so long. The sorcerer fell to his knees, defeated. His dark laughter died in his throat. The chamber trembled one last time before settling into a calm that felt almost sacred. Snow fell gently through the cracks in the ruined roof, as if the world itself was sighing in relief. Amara sank to her knees, exhausted but alive. The wolves, now human again, gathered around her, each one touching her shoulders, clasping her hands, or bowing their heads in silent respect. The Alpha knelt beside her, his golden eyes soft, warm, and filled with something she had not expected: gratitude, pride, and affection. "You did it," he said quietly, brushing a strand of snow from her hair. "We did it. You saved us all." Amara shook her head. "I didn't do it alone," she said. "You guided me, the pack, everyone helped. I just did what I had to." The Alpha smiled faintly. "Courage is what makes the difference. You have it, Amara, in spades. That is why you are my Omega, why you are part of this pack, part of this kingdom." Her chest tightened. "My Omega," she whispered, the words tasting new and strange. I don't understand." "You will," he said softly. "It is not just a title, it is recognition, a bond. You saw life when others turned away. You risked everything to save 11 wolves, including me. That is why you are mine, just as I am yours." Amara felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had never felt so seen, so understood. For the first time, she realized that courage, kindness, and compassion were not weaknesses. They were strength. And standing beside the Alpha King, she felt powerful in a way that had nothing to do with magic or titles. The pack gathered around them, their forms now fully human, yet still radiating the latent energy of the wolves within. They smiled, laughed softly, and shared quiet words of thanks. Amara realized that she had not only saved lives, but she had restored a family, a pack, bound not just by magic but by loyalty and heart. The Alpha stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "The curse is broken," he said, "but the world is not without challenges. We must rebuild, protect, and ensure that darkness does not return." Amara nodded, heart swelling. I will stay," she said. "I will help, with you, with them, with everything." He smiled, and for the first time there was no distance between them, no fear, no secrets. Just the bond of two hearts forged in fire, frost, and trials beyond imagining. The ruins of Valemire shimmered in the morning light. Snow fell gently, and the first signs of spring hinted at life returning to the frozen land. Amara looked around at the pack, at the Alpha, at the wolves she had saved and who had become her family. She felt a peace she had never known. Yet even in that peace, she could feel the stirrings of the future, the responsibilities, the dangers, the magic that would always touch their lives. But she also knew she would not face it alone. The Alpha King stepped closer, brushing a hand across her cheek. "You are not only my Omega," he said softly, "but my equal. Together we can face whatever comes next. Together we can lead, protect, and heal." Amara's eyes met his, and for the first time she felt the full weight of her courage and heart reflected back at her. "Together," she whispered. The wolves circled them, forming a living crown around the Alpha and his Omega. Their forms shimmered between human and wolf, a reminder of the power, loyalty, and unity that had saved them all. And as the sun rose fully over the snow-covered ruins, Amara understood the truth of what they had accomplished. The curse was broken. The Alpha King had been redeemed, not just in power but in heart. And she, the Omega who had risked everything, had become the bridge between worlds, human and wolf, courage and destiny, love and loyalty. Yet even in that moment of triumph, the forest whispered of challenges yet to come. The magic of the world was alive, unpredictable, and eternal. And the Alpha King and his Omega, bonded, united, and unbroken, would face it together, stronger than any darkness, braver than any fear, and guided by a bond that no curse could ever sever. The sun touched the ruins with gold, and for the first time, Amara smiled without fear. She had saved 11 wolves, faced a king hidden in shadow, confronted magic older than memory, and discovered the depth of courage within herself. And the Alpha King, standing beside her, knew that he had found not only his pack, but the one who had saved him in ways even a crown and kingdom could never repay. The snow melted slowly, the ice gave way to life, and a new era began, one of hope, redemption, and the quiet, enduring power of love and courage.